Sunday Night Late Show.
My next guest is no stranger to the Ed Sullivan Theater.
Thanks again to President Barack Obama. Go on sale for the Obama Presidential Center tomorrow morning, and it opens on June 19th.
There's a peculiar kind of loss that happens when something is taken from you before you're ready to let it go. It's different from choosing to step away, different from a natural ending, different from walking out on your own terms. It's the loss of agency. It's the loss of control over your own narrative. And that's what happened in the summer of 2025, when one of America's most influential voices in late-night television was told, almost without warning, that his time was finished. The Late Show with Stephen Colbert wasn't failing. By every measure that matters in the television business, viewership, critical acclaim, cultural relevance, it was thriving. For 9 consecutive years, it had occupied the top spot in late-night ratings. It had won Emmy Awards, including the most prestigious award for Variety Talk Series in its final season. 2.7 million people tuned in on a typical night to watch this man sit behind a desk and make sense of a chaotic world through humor, intelligence, and an almost surgical precision with language. The show was a juggernaut. And then suddenly it wasn't. CBS made the cancellation official in July 2025, but the real story begins before that announcement ever happened. Stephen Colbert was on vacation when his team learned the decision had been made. He didn't find out until that evening, when his manager finally told him. No advance warning. No chance to propose a different path forward. Just a simple fact. Your show is over. The next morning, he walked into the Ed Sullivan Theater, the same building where David Letterman had revolutionized late-night television, where Colbert himself had built something remarkable, and told his audience the news before CBS could issue an official press release. What he said in that moment revealed something crucial about who this man actually is. He didn't rail against the decision. He didn't express anger or resentment toward the network. Instead, he thanked the 200 people who made the show happen every single day. He expressed genuine gratitude for a decade of creative partnership. He acknowledged the weight of what was being lost. And when he said that he wouldn't be replaced, that the show itself was simply disappearing, you could hear the audience react with something close to mourning. This wasn't just one host leaving. This was an entire institution, a tradition that had existed on CBS for 32 years, vanishing from television forever. The financial explanation came quickly from CBS. The show had been hemorrhaging money. Some reports suggested losses in the range of $40 million annually. The late-night television business had fundamentally changed. Streaming had fragmented the audience. Ad dollars had migrated away from traditional broadcast time slots toward digital platforms. Even Colbert's most viral moments, clips that generated millions of views on YouTube and social media, weren't producing revenue for CBS because the network didn't own those platforms. The economics didn't work anymore. That was the official story. But the timing created an entirely different narrative. 3 days before CBS announced the cancellation, Colbert had made a bold statement on air. Paramount, the parent company of CBS, had agreed to pay $16 million to settle a lawsuit brought by Donald Trump. The lawsuit centered on an allegation that CBS News had unfairly edited a 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris during the 2024 presidential campaign. Colbert called what happened exactly what it resembled, a payment that looked, for all practical purposes, like a bribe. He said it directly. He said it clearly. He said it with the kind of certainty that comes from a man who has spent his entire career speaking truth to power. 3 days later, his show was canceled. CBS insisted that the decision was purely financial, made against a challenging backdrop in the late-night industry, and had nothing to do with politics or corporate pressure. But credibility is difficult to maintain when the sequence of events tells a different story. Senator Elizabeth Warren issued a statement questioning whether the public deserved to know the real reason. The Writers Guild of America called for an investigation, suggesting that the cancellation itself resembled the kind of favor currying that benefits those in power. And Trump, who never misses an opportunity to make his celebration public, posted on Truth Social that he was thrilled Colbert had been fired and added, without being asked, that he expected Jimmy Kimmel would be next. Whether the cancellation was primarily financial or primarily political may ultimately matter less than the question it raises about institutional courage. What does it say about a major broadcasting company that when a host speaks plainly about something that appears corrupt, the decision-making process suddenly shifts? What does it say about the incentive structures in American media that a historically strong performer can be removed from the air within days of making a statement that apparently made powerful people? To understand why this moment matters so much, you have to understand what Stephen Colbert actually is. He wasn't born into show business. He wasn't a natural entertainer who stumbled into success. He was a boy who lost his father and two of his brothers in an airplane crash when he was 10 years old. Eastern Airlines Flight 212 went down in Charlotte, North Carolina, on a September afternoon in 1974, and in one moment, Colbert's entire family structure was fundamentally altered. He was the youngest of 11 children, and suddenly, 3 of them were gone. What he learned from his mother in the aftermath of that loss was a lesson most people never internalize: how to move through devastating grief without becoming bitter. How to remain broken in some essential way while refusing to allow that brokenness to poison everything else. Later, as a young man, Colbert wrestled with his Catholic faith to the point where he considered himself an atheist. He struggled with anxiety and panic attacks. He questioned whether he had made the right choices. And somewhere in that struggle, he discovered that comedy could be a container for complicated, painful truths. Comedy could hold distance between the observer and the observed while still allowing the observer to see clearly. He went to Northwestern University, earned a degree in theater, moved to Chicago, and joined the Second City Improv Troupe. He created sketch comedy with Amy Sedaris and Paul Dinello. He tried to work at The Late Show with David Letterman and didn't get hired. Eventually, he landed at The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, initially on a trial basis. The producer who hired him, Madeline Smithberg, took a chance on a young man who had no guarantee of success. He became the longest-running correspondent in the show's history, and that job became his education in how to combine satire with journalism, humor with urgency, entertainment with consequence. When he eventually took over The Late Show from David Letterman in September 2015, there were significant doubts. Letterman had been the voice of that time slot for 22 years. He was an institution. Colbert, who had built his entire reputation playing a fictional character, a satirical right-wing pundit on the Colbert Report, was now going to have to show up as himself, without the shield of a persona, in front of millions of people every single night. The first season was rough. The ratings were weak. Critics weren't sure what the show was trying to be. There was even a special event after the Super Bowl in February 2016 that was universally regarded as a disaster. But then something shifted. Donald Trump won the presidency in November 2016, and almost overnight, Colbert's show found its voice. His monologues became sharper, more urgent, more personal. The show stopped being broadly political and started being specifically and relentlessly critical of the administration. And the audience showed up. By the 2016 to 2017 season, The Late Show was the highest-rated late-night program in the country. It had broken through a ceiling that no CBS late-night show had penetrated since the 1990s. And it held that position consistently year after year, through a pandemic, through strikes, through FCC pressure, through everything. What made the show distinctive wasn't just the ratings, though. It was the approach that Colbert took with his guests. He rejected the conventional celebrity interview format. He brought President Joe Biden on to discuss grief and loss. He had conversations with musicians that drifted into unexpected territory about faith and meaning. He created moments where guests said things they hadn't planned on saying, where the interaction felt genuine rather than choreographed. That kind of trust takes years to build. Colbert built it. In the weeks before the finale, something unusual happened in the competitive world of late-night television. The hosts who were supposed to be rivals showed up to support each other. Jimmy Kimmel cleared his schedule so he wouldn't compete with Colbert's final episode. Jimmy Fallon, Seth Meyers, and John Oliver all appeared together on one show. David Letterman, The man who had first claimed that theater and that time slot walked back into the Ed Sullivan Theater to a standing ovation. He was visibly angry about what had happened to Colbert. He reminded the audience that they wouldn't even be in that building if not for him, and that no matter what CBS had decided to take away, they couldn't take away a person's voice. Then he closed with a paraphrase of Edward R. Murrow that made clear his position on the whole affair. Barack Obama appeared to say goodbye as well. During their conversation, Obama suggested, apparently with some degree of seriousness, that Colbert might want to consider a run for political office, noting that the qualifications for such positions had shifted in ways that created unexpected opportunities. The final week of episodes became something more than just television programming. They became a collective processing of loss. The show announced 4 final episodes that would air in May 2026. Monday would feature a special episode called The Worst of the Late Show, not a compilation of clips, but something original with that name. Tuesday would bring Jon Stewart and Steven Spielberg, along with a live performance by David Byrne and Colbert together. Wednesday would feature Colbert answering his own famous interview segment, The Colbert Questionnaire, with special guests present and Bruce Springsteen performing. And Thursday, the finale, would include virtually everyone who had mattered in Colbert's professional life and career. What comes after The Late Show is already decided. Colbert announced in March 2026 that he would be writing a new Lord of the Rings film alongside his son Peter. The two of them had pitched the project to director Peter Jackson 2 years earlier. Jackson responded warmly to the idea, and Colbert, who was a genuine and encyclopedic Tolkien superfan, the kind of person who once recited the entire biography of Aragorn from memory on live television, prompting Viggo Mortensen to later send him chocolate carvings of Lord of the Rings characters as a thank you, had apparently been sitting on this dream, unable to pursue it while anchoring a daily television show. The statistics of The Late Show are remarkable. 11 Emmy Awards, 2 Grammy Awards, 3 Peabody Awards, 1,801 episodes across 11 years. The longest consecutive ratings-winning streak in the entire history of the Late Show franchise. A show that won its first Emmy for Outstanding Variety Talk Series in 2025, in what turned out to be its final season. Behind all of that achievement stands a man who lost his father at age 10, wrestled with profound questions of faith and meaning in his 20s, battled anxiety in his 30s while wondering if he had thrown away any chance at a conventional life, and then went on to anchor the most-watched late-night show in America for nearly a decade. The moment that matters most, perhaps, is the one that captured his response to the audience's reaction to the cancellation. When the audience booed, when they expressed their genuine disappointment and frustration, Colbert simply nodded at them and said that he felt exactly the same way. That moment, that acknowledgement, that solidarity, revealed something about why people cared so much about him and his show. It wasn't just about the jokes or the celebrity interviews or the monologues, though all of those things mattered. It was about the experience of watching someone show up every night and try to make sense of an increasingly complicated world with honesty and humor and intelligence. The question that lingers is the one Colbert himself posed in his final weeks on air. Did CBS make the decision to cancel because the economics truly had become untenable, or because something that Colbert said had become too expensive for powerful people to tolerate? The network insists on the former explanation. The timing, the sequence of events, and the broader context suggest a more complicated answer. But perhaps what matters most is what the whole affair teaches us about institutions, about courage, and about what happens when someone in a position of visibility chooses to speak clearly about something that demands to be named. Stephen Colbert said goodbye to television not entirely on his own terms, and not entirely when he would have chosen. But in that loss of control, he found something unexpected. More material to work with, more to say, and one final reason to show up every night. Like, subscribe, and follow for more.